Today, I'm going to cover all the things you should and shouldn't do when it comes to healing Sludgefist, generally walking you through what's going through my mind as I make the decisions, and I'm going to be talking mostly about Mythic Sludgefist. 90% of the stuff I talk about is the exact same in Heroic or even normal. With that being said, let's go to the actual fight. So before the fight starts, do your usual thing like putting down F-flow and some hots on the tank, and first thing I would like you to notice is I actually use Convoke, Healing Convoke, and on Shriekwing and Sludgefist, if you line of sight behind the pillars, they can cast 12 healing spells, so I'd highly recommend to do that. On progress, if you are 5 healing, you might need to do DPS Convoke instead, so you actually kill the boss. The reason I'm using a healing Convoke is so I can get it at key moments in the fight, which is the second Convoke at second pillar, and third Convoke after the third pillar. For healing, only change I would do if you are 5 healing is I would use Tranquility on second pillar, and use DPS Convoke at the start, but that's the only change I would ever do. Here you can see I have Innovate and Tree of Life. Again, this is mostly to get to Innovate on cooldown, and same thing with Tree of Life. Despite them not being super efficient, it's mostly to have them back at the key moment in the fight, and that's after the third pillar transitioning before the last happens, as at that point I need to do all the healing myself, because no healers have CDs. Again, Effervescence down and trying to put Rejuvenation on as many people when I have my Tree of Life due to the discount. And then you have to be really careful with your mana on this fight. Don't be greedy. You're going to get all your healing in the third to fourth pillar, so you want to spend some mana and generally just heal with like Bow Groves or Efflorescence, and spend the rest of your time doing just simple like clear casting procs, or just saving people with Swiftmans, or whatever is needed. In this fight, you can only get 1 potion, so you can see me now that I'm using a long potion instead of trying to get 2 potions. If you are 5 healing, it may be sometimes better to use, if you use it too early, you can use a 6000 potion and then 6000 potion at the end. For healing, I use my Trank at the third pillar, but you can theoretically use it at the first pillar, but then you wouldn't have it like at the exact timing just to stabilize. Again, second Convoke, I got really lucky, I got Flourish, but on the other hand, we missed a Soak, so well, I got a value off of it. It was really scary, and if I didn't get that Flourish, we probably would have been dead. Again, you can see me, we are like 2 minutes into the fight and I'm sitting at like 80% of my mana. You need to be very careful, as like right now in this second to third pillar, I'm going to have no CDs except my Tranquility, so you're going to see me dump a lot of mana just to stabilize people to not actually like die to the mechanics. Again, make sure you always watch your target and keep some hots on the tanks. Always remember that you as a healer should always prioritize people who are low instead of like padding. You actually need to be on the lookout and not be scared to use regrowths despite them being very inefficient on people who just die from the mechanics. As in the end, if you have good locks, you'll get into guilds, but if then you fail the trials because you are just greedy and your locks are because you are just padding, it's not going to last too long. Now you can see I dropped like 40% mana in this span of few seconds. I call for everyone to use Healthstones and Health Pots, as this is one of the hardest healing checks, because you can see we have literally no CDs for this pillar except Aura Mastery. So I'm going to dump my last remaining mana, and now was one of my mistakes where I called for an Innovate and then used Tree of Life right after. I probably should have used the Innovate from my Boomkin a lot later, after the Tree of Life ended, but it happened, so yeah, something you should try to avoid doing. In a perfect world, I would preferably try to save my Flourish with the Convoke that's coming up in 10 seconds, but sometimes you just can't do that and the healing wouldn't even be needed. So you can see me, I'm using Flourish now, and again focusing on the people who are low and have the bleed, so they actually don't die to the spells. Again, using Convoke in Innovate is very suboptimal, but it's just what's needed to kill the boss, so sometimes you just have to do not the optimal stuff to kill the boss. Again, just pay attention a little bit to my rotation, and despite you can see that I have a lot of Innovates on people, I'm using Innovates mostly when I have my cooldowns up, because otherwise I would just go and in the first 2 pillars of the fight, I'm being very careful about my mana. When for healing, this is when the boss should die, But yeah, at this point the boss should have been dead. So you can see I'm struggling with my last mana. I'm using Renewal because Vow Charge is pretty useless unless you're like God Gamer. Or same with Tiger Dash, you will just outrun your teammate super fast. Here I call for one of the innovates from the second Boomkin, who is supposed to innovate the priest, but I see that the priest doesn't have spiritual yet, and he won't have it for the remainder of the fight, and he has enough mana to manage without it. So I'm just trying to do some last resort to save people, and just DPSing at the end, because yeah, I have no mana, trying to get like one last regrowth off, and we kill the boss. So with that being said, I hope you enjoyed the guide, and if you did, make sure to like and subscribe, and cheers!